Iran's political atmosphere is becoming warmer as we are getting closer to the 11th presidential election, which would be held on June the 14th, 2013. Here and there, newspapers and websites publish stories of potential candidates who are still hesitating to announce their candidacy. But there are also others who had refused to get involved, while some firmly state that no one could stop them and they will not step off. The number of potential candidates this year is not a record in the last 10 rounds of presidential elections, but there is a slight difference comparing to the last rounds. We are seeing more political figures expressing their interest to become the next president of the Islamic Republic of Iran. While some analysts believe that they are hopeful to win the ballots, others believe this is just a strategy taken by different political fronts. Strategy or not, right now it is said that around 30 politicians are willing to take their chances in the contest. Nearly half of them formally expressed their candidacy for presidency. From now on, candidates only have 20 days to make their final decision. Starting from May the 7th, 2013, they have a 5-day chance to register their names for the election. After that, the verification of candidates' credentials will start by the Guardian Council. Until that day, and even after it, candidates may withdraw and endorse another. Therefore, many observers believe that you should wait until the start of presidential campaigns to see who is really running for the election. In this episode of Iran Today, we will zoom in on different political fronts and parties' positions. While we have less than 2 months to the next presidential election in Iran, most political parties and groups have not yet reached agreement to nominate their candidates. Political groups in Iran used to be divided mainly in two major sides: the right wing, which consisted of fractions and figures who strongly refer to the basics of the Islamic Revolution and try to preserve the status quo, and the left wing, which criticizes the current situation and are thinking of reform within the principles of the Islamic Republic. But it is more than a decade that the political orientations in Iran have changed. We asked Mehdi Faza Ali, journalist and political analyst, about the political makeup of the upcoming election.
Principalists are one of the trends which are divided to different groups, such as the Perseverance Front, the followers of Imam and Leadership Front, the famous 2+1 coalition, and other emerging groups. And today, we see other new movements within the principalists. So we have a principalist side in different varieties and another side that is the reformists. There's a lot of discussion inside the reformists, and they have different candidates as well. And still, it isn't clear what groups of them, represented by which candidates, and with what arrangements is going to participate in the elections.
جبهه پیروان خط امام و رهبری, or the followers of Imam and Leadership Front, the Coalition of Three, and جبهه پایداری انقلاب اسلامی, or the Perseverance Front, are the main principalist groups participating in the upcoming election. The Perseverance Front was formed on July the 28th, 2011, mainly by the former ministers in President Ahmadinejad's cabinets. Based on the latest reports in the Iranian media, Kamran Bagheri Lankarani is one of the main choices of this front. Political analysts in Iran believe that Lankarani, who is the spokesman of the front, will be the final choice.
When selecting our candidates, our main concern is choosing the most proficient candidate and then raising awareness in the society. Obviously, the people will select the final candidate, and we, as socio-political group based on dialogue, merely promote our ideas. Our decisions are made regardless of those candidates you mentioned.
We asked Saeed Ajalu, the editor-in-chief for Musallas Weekly, why the Perseverance Front has not yet officially nominated a candidate.
به نظرم تو این موضوع چالش دارن.
I think they are facing a challenge in this respect. I mean, the main challenge for the Perseverance Front will be the stance regarding current situation. Defending the current situation equals defending the current administration. Opposing the current situation creates a paradox of being from one side and opposing it at the same time. If the Perseverance Front is really looking for a way out of today's situation, at least in terms of economy and governance, they have to criticize the administration. Then they will lose the supportive words of the administration, keeping in mind that the Perseverance Front is a justice-oriented group, just like the administration. However, the administration talks of a combination of freedom, nationalism, and justice. In addition, the Perseverance Front talks of Islamism too. In summary, Iranian Muslim or Muslim Iranian is the bone of contention here. The Perseverance Front says Iranian Muslim, and the administration might say Muslim Iranian or Iranian Islam. Another leading principalist group is the followers of Imam and leadership, which is comprised of 15 political parties and factions. The group had introduced 3 political figures as the potential candidates before 2 other candidates were added to the list. Now the coalition made by the group, which is called 3+2 or the coalition of 5, consists of 1. Former Foreign Minister Manucher Mottaki, 2. Deputy Speaker of the Parliament Mohammad Reza Bahonar, Head of Tehran Chamber of Commerce Yahya Ale Eshaq, 4 Deputy Speakers of the Parliament Muhammad Hassan Abu Torabi Fard, and 5 Head of the State Inspectorate Organization of Iran Mustafa Pur Mohammadi.
ما تا اردیبهشت ما تقریباً اولین وزن‌کشی نسبت به نامزده‌های
The first estimates of the candidates' acceptance in the society will be in May. Those with a better chance will find more popularity. And then some candidates who are finding less support in the feedback will leave the competition by themselves. Then we make use of acceptable collaborative mechanisms to limit the number of candidates and even reach a unity at the end.
Musayyeb Naimi, journalist and political analyst, believes that the coalition will not reach an agreement on a single candidate.
There
are a lot of candidates, and when the time for decision-making comes, it's very far-fetched to have one principalist candidate, because each has its own options, and as each faction of the principalists is large, and its own regional, political, general and operational evaluations, right now we might hear that a principalist candidate is an expert in executive works and innovations, so he's better internationally, or the other one is better for creating harmony between different parties of the country. None of them is perfect for everything. Therefore, agreement on one candidate is very much far-fetched, or I might say it's impossible.
It is said that Ali Larijani, the parliament speaker, will be endorsed by the coalition of 5 if he announces his candidacy. According to Hassan Zamani, the speaker's advisor, Larijani will officially declare his candidacy in the next 10 days. Another principalist coalition has been made among Tehran's current mayor, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, former foreign minister and the current advisor to the leader Ali Akbar Velayati, and former parliament speaker Gholam Ali Haddad Adel, called the Coalition of 3. Political analysts argue that Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf will be the final candidate of the coalition, as surveys done by some Iranian news agencies show. Some analysts believe that the coalition is a positive phenomenon in Iran's political arena.
الان مهمترین اتفاقی که در عرصه سیاست ایران در انتخابات افتاده ائتلاف 3 نفره است دیگه.
Up to now, the most important thing has been the 2+1 coalition. It means coalition of individuals who enjoy social importance. Mr. Velayati is a prominent figure in the society. The same is true of Dr. Ghalibaf for his work in the police and the municipality of Tehran. The same is true of Dr. Haddad Adel for his patience and tranquility, his parliament years and his cultural background. And they have succeeded in creating links between the government and the people.
I think a successful candidate should create a balance in the elections between the whole governance system and the society. In other words, he has to have a social support and be able to interact correctly using the support.
مجموعه حاکمیت و جامعه، یعنی هم رأی داشته باشه و هم بتونه به واسطه این رأیش درست تعامل بکنه.
The editor-in-chief for Tehran Emruz Daily, Sayyid Javad Sayyidpour, explains about the purposes behind the formation of the coalition.
جریان ائتلاف برای پیشرفت که در واقع تشکیل شده است از آقای ولایتی.
The Coalition for Progress, which is made of Mr. Ghalibaf, Mr. Velayati and Mr. Haddad Adel, is doing all they can to help Iran to realize its international and national potentials. They think that the current situation is unacceptable. Iran and the Iranians for sure can stand in a better situation, certainly. It's a welfare level suitable for the whole people and to international standards. If they can win the administration, all their energies will be channeled to realization of these goals and towards a real progress and development.
Principalists in Iran have always had traditional rivals in the elections, the reformists. After the presidential election in 2009, in which Mir Hossein Mousavi, the candidate vehemently supported by reformists, did not accept the result of the election, and the subsequent unrests took place, the reformist camp has not actively participated in Iran's political arena. In this round of presidential election, most of the reformist groups are still ambivalent in nominating their candidates.
اصلاح طلبان دو طیف دارن. یه طیف که به دنبال
The reformers are divided in two groups. One is seeking the maximum support and follow sociology of contrast, meaning they want to divide the society into two and win the elections. The other side look for the minimum option or an in-between one. I call it technocrats for politicians. They include Mr. Jahangiri or Mr. Aref or the like.
Mustafa Kavakebian, who is leader of Mardom Salari or the Democracy Party, is the only reformist who declared his candidacy officially. Political analysts and news commentators in Iran name other figures in reformist candidates, but none of them officially stated whether they run for presidency or not.
تو این مرحله تا الان حداقل
At this stage, reformist ideas are diverse. I mean, there are different views, perspectives, opinions, and I've heard of no perfect match in the media and the press or the experts' views, even within the reformists so far. On the other hand, the potential candidates might never be agreed upon at the end. Therefore, some say that they should wait to see which of the other candidates, who will be principalists or ex-principalists, is well suited for them, and then support him.
While some reformists urge their comrades that they should participate in the election, some others contend that they do not have to nominate a candidate. Moreover, there is a debate that the likely reformist candidates are capable of gaining support from other reformist figures and parties.
مشکلی که اصلاح طلبها دارن در سطح نخبگانه، نمیتونن تصمیم بگیرن. همونجور که عرض کردم
The reformist problem is at the top level. They can't decide. As I said, choosing the maximum or in-between option or even supporting a principalist to continue national coalition suggestion of Mr. Hashemi Rafsanjani has divided them to three branches of decision-making. If they can reach an agreement on one option and eliminate the other two, I predict that the main competition will occur between the reformists and the principalists. But if they can't solve this problem, the final two sides will be other factions, or there might be three competing forces.
شکل دیگری به خودش بگیره یا نهایتاً سه قطبی بشه.
Some observers say Mohammad Khatami, former president, and Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, former president and current head of the Expediency Council, are two figures who the reformist groups have consensus on. But none of these two politicians have spoken about their interest in running for presidency.
اینکه با در واقع کاندید اکثریت خودشون بخوام وارد بشن توی تحلیل‌هایی که
If they decide for a majority candidate, the analysts think of two majority candidates being Mr. Hashemi Rafsanjani and Mr. Khatami. Mr. Khatami has to reach the conclusion to participate. Mr. Hashemi has to reach the same conclusion, but with Mr. Rouhani's introduction on last Thursday, it's predicted that Mr. Hashemi will support him instead.
All candidates who register for the election should be approved by the Guardian Council. Some reformists hint that the Guardian Council will not approve of Mohammad Khatami if he officially runs in the election. We asked Abbas Ali Kadkhodai, spokesman of the Guardian Council, to explain about the Council's stance on the issue.
As the Guardian Council is subject to the law, it's not bound to do so. As you know, there have been elections with 10 or 15 candidates, or 1,000 or more even in the recent years. So the law puts no limitation here. Yet, we suggest to the candidates to have the conditions stated in the Constitution and to have the abilities required by this grave task.
Many observers in Iran believe that the administration itself is one of the main players in the election. Speculation is mounting that some members of Ahmadinejad's cabinet have been preparing for presidential run. However, none of them confirmed that.
The other active group with potentials of essential change is the administration. Well, the administration is willing to remain in the politics and not to lose the executive bodies, although it's the second term of Mr. Ahmadinejad's presidency and he can't be a candidate again. Previously, as the final days of a president came closer, there were talks of revisions in the constitution and extensions to the presidency. Well, it's impossible and the discussions have been made. Now there is some talk of creating a de facto extension by a president who is like the famous Russian model of Putin and Medvedev or some other form of it.
While no political figure is introduced by the administration as its candidate, to what extent such a candidate can win the population vote has been a matter of controversy in the media.
I think the candidate that the administration has introduced or will introduce won't meet much of a support in Iran. I think the opposing factors are much more vocal. Interestingly, the administration is taking advantage of their shout and cries and turning them into propaganda and publicity for its own candidate. The administration is presenting him as a turning point. I object to that because of the opinion polls and surveys. Their main candidate of the administration has ranked very low in the polls.
There are some potential candidates who call themselves independent since they are not supported by major political parties or deny any membership in the current camps.
When we say independent, it doesn't mean that their ideas are independent from the main political factions of the country or they are completely different from the definitions of the country. They might be similar to one faction and different from the other. They aren't part of the official factions. Independent candidates just don't get affirmation of official principalist or reformist factions and aren't members of their circles.
The former Minister of Commerce in the President Khatami's cabinet, Mohammad Shariat Madari, is also a potential candidate. He announced moderation as his slogan for election campaigns. Mohsen Rezai, the current secretary of the Expediency Council, is another independent candidate who rejects any coalition with other figures and fractions.
Mr. Mohsen Rezai is actually a principalist, but he's not part of the traditional right wing, the Perseverance Front, or the 2+1 coalition. One might call him an independent principalist, just like Mr. Shariat Madari within the reformists.
On April the 11th, 2013, Hassan Rouhani, the former Iranian nuclear negotiator, in a gathering of his supporters, officially joined the presidential race as an independent candidate. Two of Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani's children were among the participants, so many journalists interpreted as a sign of support.
آمده‌ام تا برای ایران اسلامی
I have come to make the administration of wisdom and hope for Islamic Iran, to rescue Iranian economy and interact productively with world and to restore morality in the society.
تدبیر و امید را تشکیل دهم.
Registration of candidates is scheduled to be from the 7th to the 11th of May 2013. With the registration days drawing closer, the number of potential candidates rises. Names of nearly 30 candidates have been discussed in the media. While some observers argue that the number is a matter of concern, there are some others who take a positive look.
The abundance of the candidate is of course a positive thing, for it covers more tastes. As the leader said in his New Year's speech, our election is a free election and we hope to have every political opinion in there. Therefore, the abundance is certainly good, yet we hope for them to represent different classes of the people rather than representing a few number or just the high classes. And the candidates reaching to the final stages depends on the Guardian Council's selection based on their qualifications. We estimate a comprehensive participation.
According to Iran's constitution, there is no limitation on the number of candidates and anyone can run for presidency, provided that he is found eligible by the Guardian Council based on Article 115 of the Iranian constitution.
The Guardian Council is an impartial body who has to act objectively by definition. Therefore, the Guardian Council will not look into political alignment of the candidates. The criteria are general qualifications and necessary conditions. So the faction, party, or group isn't important to them, and they even welcome variety of the candidates.
More than 15 figures publicly stated that they would strongly participate in the election, but there are still some potential candidates who deferred their decisions to the day of registration.
I think we will see names in registration days that aren't included in estimated lists, and they might even find support. And many of those who are now claiming strong support are certain of candidacy, will not even register. This occurs because of everyone's predictions and consultants' evaluations of the current situation. This is another point illustrating the lively stage of politics in the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Many in Iran and around the world are looking ahead at the results of the forthcoming election. Unilateral US embargoes and the unprecedented inflation rate have raised the people's expectations from the next president. It seems that in this round, people will choose a candidate who presents the best plan to ease the sanctions and boost the economy.